Tonight we are looking at 3 horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. In Australia, a power failure seals 2 guides behind the locked gates of the oldest show cave on Earth, with one dying headlamp between them. In Belize, a flash flood tears through a sacred Maya river cave, and a guide swims into the current for the 2 tourists her count says are missing. And in Lebanon, nitrogen narcosis quietly talks 2 expert divers past their turn pressure, 70 meters past the point their plan called safe. Each story starts with confidence and ends in chaos. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On July 9th, 2026, Noah Fisher unlocked a barred gate in the mountains west of Sydney and walked into JENOLAN, the only cave that has lit its decorated halls by lamplight for tourists 150 straight years running. He and a junior guide were running the last maintenance walk before evening tours. Check every switch, every gate, every rope-lit stairwell, every light along 2 kilometers of show cave. Noah was 33 years old, a cave guide who had logged 8 years walking JENOLAN's chambers, the one new guides shadowed first. His habit was small and constant. Every gate he passed through, he counted aloud. 1. Open. 2. Open. Because a cave built for the public, he liked to say, has more doors than any one guide can remember by feel. The plan was a 90-minute walkthrough with a junior named Priya, past a dozen locked gates, checking lights chamber by chamber, against a 90-minute clock. Here is what you need to understand about a show cave built for the public. It is threaded with security gates, heavy and barred, locked behind every group so visitors cannot wander off the path. The gates assume light. Someone can always see the keyhole. Take the light away, and a cave built to keep people out becomes a cave that keeps people in. The same bars, the same locks, now facing the wrong direction entirely. The walk ran its familiar rhythm. Switch banks clicking on chamber after chamber, limestone columns catching gold light one by one. Noah's count rising past a dozen gates without a stumble. They were 3 chambers from the far end, ahead of schedule. Behind them, in the valley above, a summer storm cell they had not been told about dropped a tree across the site's main power line. Mid-chamber, that is when the cave lost its whole argument at once. Every light along 2 kilometers died together at once, because the tree had already failed the line feeding the entire show system. The dark that followed was the total kind, the kind a show cave's own architecture is built to prevent anyone from ever meeting alone. What he didn't know, reaching for a headlamp he always carried but rarely needed, the backup generator's auto-start relay had failed months ago, unnoticed, because nobody had ever needed it before. And that habit would now have to run backward from memory alone. 1. Open. 2. Open. In reverse, in the dark. The lights died as one. Priya's breathing spiked beside him. Panic pressed close in the black. They were sealed. The gates ahead answered to no power at all. Because this is the trap in a public show cave. The security gates that keep tourists safe from the dark do not know the difference between a lost visitor and a guide with a dead flashlight. The lock does its one job regardless of who needs the door. 2 guides, 1 dying headlamp, and 150 years of tourist architecture now working against them instead of for them. Watch the ledger Noah built by feel. His headlamp had perhaps 40 minutes left, rationed now to short bursts only. A surface office that would notice the whole system down within the hour, and a generator with a fault nobody had ever had reason to find. And 3 sealed gates between them and the entrance, each one a lock built to be opened, not forced. He ran the count backward the way he had run it forward 10,000 times, eyes closed, palm on the wall. Counting his own steps between gates, feeling for the keyholes he had photographed with his hands for 8 years. Put yourself in that dark for 1 minute of it. Your only light rationed to a heartbeat at a time. 150 years of tourist history pressing in from every side, and your own hands doing a job your eyes have always done for you. 10 minutes in, at the first gate, his key found the lock on the second try, by feel, the bars swinging with a groan that sounded like relief. 20 minutes in, at the second gate, the headlamp gave its last honest burst of light, and he took it gratefully, spending the beam like the last of a currency. 30 minutes in, at the third gate, the lock held the whole walk hostage for 6 more minutes, the same lock he had passed 12 times that afternoon, refusing his hand's memory in total dark until he forced himself still, breathed, and let his fingers work slower than his fear wanted. It gave. They came out the final corridor into a foyer lit only by storm-gray daylight through the entrance doors, and found the surface team already gathering, radios crackling about a downed line and a generator that would not answer. Noah sat Priya down first, checked her hands were steady, and only then radioed his own count. 3 gates, 40 minutes dark, everyone out. Both guides survived unhurt, and the cave's own incident report ruled the lockout a facilities failure, compounded by an unmonitored generator fault, and printed the fix in one number every guide now quotes. 3 gates, 1 new override key each, 0 repeats in 1 year. The oldest open cave system on Earth still locks its show halls behind tourists every night. The same bars, the same purpose. Noah still counts his gates out loud on every walkthrough, and Priya, promoted to full guide within the year, counts along beside him now. A cave built to keep people out can keep you in just as easily, he tells the new guides at the entrance gate. Carry 2 lights, count every door. When the count itself has failed you in the dark, let your hands remember what your eyes cannot. On September 12, 2026, Marisol Ochoa waded into the clear river mouth of ACTUN TUNICHIL MUKNAL in Belize, the most dangerous show cave on Earth by some rankings, a Maya sacred site where a river runs a kilometer through chambers of ancient pottery and human bone left 1,000 years before anyone carried a flashlight. She led 6 tourists on the classic route. Wade and swim the entrance passages, climb into the dry cathedral chamber, and view the crystal Maiden, a skeleton calcified into the floor, before the 2-hour walk back out. Marisol was 34 years old, an archaeology guide who had logged 9 years on this river cave, respected for a caution the company built its record on. Her fixed rule was the same with every group. Check the sky, check the upstream gauge. Because a jungle river cave, she taught every new guide, keeps its own weather report upstream, out of sight. That morning the sky was clear, the gauge read normal, and the trip began on schedule with 6 clients eager for the cathedral chamber. Here is what you need to understand about a jungle cave river. The entrance water tells you nothing about the water an hour upstream, where an afternoon storm can empty onto slopes the passage follows underground. The river inside the mountain answers to rain the visitors below never see fall. The doctrine is simple. Once a group is deep inside, the only warning is a rising sound behind you, and by the time you hear it, the river has already decided. The trip in ran like the postcard it always is. Waist deep, wading through cool, clear water, a short swim past a boulder gap, then the climb up into the dry cathedral chamber where centuries of pottery sat exactly where Maya hands had left it. The group spent an hour among the offerings, awed and quiet. They started back toward the entrance on schedule, wading the same passages, Marisol counting 6 clients at every junction as she always did. Deep in the entrance passages, that is when the cave's silence broke. A distant roar building behind them from upstream, low at first, because a storm cell invisible from the cave mouth had already stalled over the ridge for 40 minutes. The water at their knees rose to their thighs and kept rising, and somewhere behind them, a group was already trapped by what the river had decided. What she didn't know, turning her group toward the nearest high ledge, the ridge above had been holding the storm for most of an hour already. And that habit would now be tested past its limit. Check the sky, check the gauge, by a flood that had started its business before either instrument could have known. The roar became a wall of brown water and filled the passage to the ceiling. 2 clients were swept away. Panic had no time to speak. Marisol swam. She counted 5 heads, not 6. Because this is what a flash flood does inside a limestone drain. It does not rise politely, it arrives as a front, and a passage that was waist deep becomes a siphon in the time it takes to shout a name. 4 clients pinned on a ledge above the surge, 2 more somewhere downstream in the brown water, and a guide swimming after them into a current that had already claimed the only plan anyone had. Watch the ledger the ledge group kept, because they did everything right. 4 clients, high and dry, counted, calm, holding position exactly as briefed for precisely this kind of water. A tour company radio room that would flag the group overdue within 2 hours. And a guide who had gone into the current instead of away from it, because the 2 missing were hers to answer for. Marisol reached the first client within 30 seconds, wedged against a boulder, gasping but afloat, and got an arm hooked under his vest. The second was harder. Pulled past a bend, the surge had turned into white water, visible only as a splash of movement in brown foam. Put yourself in that current for 1 minute of it. The roar erasing every other sound. A stranger's weight on one arm, fighting a river that owns the whole passage. And a second stranger somewhere ahead, in water too violent to read. She got the first client to a ledge and went back for the second, because the count in her head still read 6 and would not let her stop at 5. The second client made it to a high shelf on his own, 30 meters downstream, battered and terrified but breathing, found an hour later by the search line working upstream from the entrance. Marisol did not make it to the shelf. The surge that had spared the client 1 bend earlier took her against the same boulder field twice, and the search line found her 3 hours later, downstream of everyone she had swum out to save. Marisol Ochoa drowned inside the cave she had guided for 9 years, having personally accounted for 6 clients while the count that mattered ran out for her. All 6 of her tourists survived. The sky she checked that morning had told her the truth about a storm that hadn't happened yet where she could see it. The inquest ruled the death a flash flood drowning during an active rescue at minute 40, and its verdict changed the park's protocol within 1 season, calling the cave's own danger by name. An upstream rain gauge with radio relay now warns all 6 river cave routes in real time, because a cave river's weather report, printed now on a sign at the entrance, cannot be read from its own mouth. The cathedral chamber still holds its pottery and its crystal maiden exactly as Maya hands left them, and every tour still counts heads at every junction. Her count continued. The guides who trained under her tell her story before every trip now, at the river mouth, before the first wade in. Check the sky, check the gauge, she taught them, and check the ridge you cannot see, the new briefing adds. Because the most dangerous cave in the district gives you exactly 40 minutes of warning if you know where to look. On May 6, 2026, Dana Okafor slipped into cold, clear water beneath a Lebanese mountain, into Jeita Grotto, the largest cave interior on Earth by volume, an underground river carved through limestone so vast that its dry chamber alone could hold a cathedral with room to spare. She was on a research permit with 1 dive partner, 40 minutes of gas, survey the flooded gallery beyond the tourist boat route to 60 meters, log the passage, and turn well inside her planned gas. Dana was 33, a technical diver who had logged 500 dives on trimix and air, careful enough that her club used her logbook to teach turn discipline. Her fixed habit was 1 hand signal, repeated every 10 meters down. Thumb to the gauge, then a number flashed on her fingers. Silent math she trusted more than her own sense of the dive. The plan called for a turn at 100 bar after 20 minutes, hard limit, on standard air, no exotic gas, a survey dive she had rehearsed a dozen times in shallower water. Here is what you need to understand about nitrogen narcosis. It does not announce itself as danger, it arrives as ease. Past 30 meters on air, the gas turns mildly intoxicating, and the deeper the dive, the more convincing the false calm becomes. The cruelest part of narcosis is procedural. It does not just relax the diver, it relaxes her judgment about her own rules. The turn pressure signal that should feel like a fire alarm starts to feel like a suggestion. The dive opened beautifully. Cool blue-green water widening into a gallery grander than any cathedral built by hands, her exhaust hissing up past limestone columns rising past the edge of sight. She and her partner descended together, trading the hand signal at every station, on plan, on gas, on schedule. At 50 meters they found the passage the survey wanted, wider and more beautiful than the maps had promised, and Dana's discipline had already failed once, quietly, because her gauge read 120 bar and neither of them had called the turn. At the passage mouth, that is when the depth cast its quiet spell. The gallery ahead glowed with a formation neither diver had ever heard described, and 20 bar of margin started to feel like a rule for someone else's dive. She signaled her partner a new number, further in, and he, narked by the same water, on the same gas, signaled agreement back. What neither did not realize, finning deeper past their own hard limit, was that two calm, competent divers had just made the same impaired decision, which felt exactly like confirmation. And that choice would now have to be undone by the one habit built to survive it: the fixed signal at every 10 meters. The gauge read 80 bar at 65 meters. Panic had no foothold. The turn slipped by. Nobody marked it. The passage kept unfolding anyway, calm and endless. Because this is the particular danger of narcosis, 20 minutes past the turn now. There was no emergency to react to, no gear failure, no lost line. Only two divers drifting past their own discipline in a mental fog that felt, from the inside, like clarity. 200 meters from the last certain turn point, 70 bar and falling, and a gallery so beautiful that neither diver had yet noticed anything was wrong. Watch what saved them, because it was not a rescue, it was a habit surfacing through the fog. At 60 bar, Dana's hand made the 10-meter signal one more time, from pure muscle memory, and her own eyes read the number back to her with sudden, sobering clarity. The shock of the true number cut through the narcosis with a snap, the way cold water cuts through sleep. She grabbed her partner's arm, her fins clicking twice against his tank, and made the signal at him hard until his own eyes focused on his gauge. Put yourself in that gallery for 1 minute of it. A passage so beautiful it feels like a reason to stay. A number on your gauge that means something you cannot quite remember. And the strange, sobering violence of your own hand shaking you back into arithmetic. They turned together at 60 bar, 70 meters past their real limit, swimming the ascent in a shared, focused silence. At 40 meters, the narcosis lifted like fog burning off a field. At 20, they made a mandatory safety stop with gas to spare. Shaken and lucid, they surfaced into the Grotto's boat channel, regulators rattling with the last of it, 18 bar between the two of them, close enough to the edge that neither spoke until they were both standing on dry limestone. Dana sat on the tourist walkway with her mask still around her neck, running the dive back in her memory and finding the gap in it. The 20 minutes where a rule she had followed for a decade had simply stopped applying to her. Her partner said the same thing, unprompted. It hadn't felt like breaking a rule. It had felt like a good idea. Both divers surfaced unhurt, and the incident report Dana filed on herself ruled the near miss a narcosis-driven turn discipline failure. Two divers agreeing to break a rule is not confirmation, it is proof the gas already decided for both of you. The largest cave interior on Earth still hides its deepest galleries past the tourist boats, glowing and enormous, and entirely indifferent to the judgment of the people who visit them. Dana still dives Jeita's flooded reaches, and now she and every partner set a hard depth alarm that beeps regardless of hand signals or shared calm. Narcosis does not feel like danger, she tells her students at the surface. It feels like your best idea yet. The turn had already failed once, 70 meters past the line, before either of them noticed. Trust the number on the gauge, never the two of you agreeing it doesn't matter anymore.